What's up, everybody? I'm Kay Marie.
I'm Lou.
And I'm Mary. And we are
Murked in the Midwest. So, how many of you guys have been on I-65 before?
I have.
I go down I-65 literally every single day to get to work. If you go on vacation, you're driving up and down it. It's normal road. It's regular highway. It comes through the Midwest. It'll take you here, there, and everywhere. And our story today is going to be about some ladies who worked off of I-65. And it just so happened that their last day of work was the last day of their lives.
Stranger things have happened on I-65.
All right. So we'll, as always, start with the victims to let you know a little bit about them. Our first victim is Vicki Lucille Heath. She was born September 29th, 1945. She lived most of her life in Kentucky. And yes, I know Kentucky is not in the Midwest, it's the South. But part of this case does happen in the Midwest. She had two adult children who, one had become newly engaged, and she had two children, and they were adults, and then she had become newly engaged after previously being divorced. She lived in Ratcliffe with her fiance, and she worked at the Super 8 hotel that was in Elizabethtown in Kentucky right off of I-65. In that area, that is considered a historic area. It is the boyhood home of Abraham Lincoln.
What?
Yes. And that area at that time, and even still to an extent, is not very populated. When you are looking at that area, you are going to see from the highway, you can see a hotel and a gas station. And then there's like multiple truck stop parking lots. So trucks can park on it. And then there's a little service road and it takes you to that Super 8 hotel.
Sounds like a town I wouldn't want to be in.
Well, everybody has to live somewhere and everybody can't live in the city. Some people live in small towns.
It gets spooky.
It gets
like,
spooky.
I don't want to live I don't want to live in Chicago.
I'm not a country girl.
Baby,
I'm a city girl.
So I can catch 72 bullets on the weekend. No, thank you.
I'm a city
I
girl.
want to live but I also don't want to live in a super small town where there's 15 people and we all know each other's business and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I do like the idea of living in a suburb or a town where
it's in Tinley Park.
Ew.
No, that's too uppity.
No, anywhere in Illinois, I'm sorry. I don't want to live in Illinois at all.
You know what? And I don't mean it's too uppity like the people. I mean the prices is too uppity. When your taxes are $8,000,
yeah, no.
I'm good. I can buy a used car for that.
I'm thinking like the vibe. I guess the vibe that Maryville has.
It's good for you.
It's good for me, but not Maryville. I don't want to stay in Maryville.
You want to go?
I want to go to Tennessee. I'm moving to Nashville.
When you move, you just take me
in Nashville. I'm gonna just live close enough.
You can take me. I can live in Nashville.
Living in Nashville.
I can live in Nashville. It's beautiful.
I'm not much of a country girl, but it's like a city/country, and you can always get litty.
You know how
yes, it's fun.
It's acceptable.
Like how the South Suburbs is to downtown Chicago. That is the, I guess, distance I would want to live to Nashville.
But I'm just saying. I mean, I'm not don't get me wrong. I love Chicago. There are things that could correct itself in Chicago, make it a lot better. But I don't want to live on the South Side, people. I just don't want to do it. I want to.
I want to live on Southwest, East, North.
That's where my family's from. Gang.
Anyways, back to our lovely lady, Miss Vicki Lucille Heath. There will be pictures posted. You can see that she was a beautiful woman. And she was in Elizabethtown, and that's where she worked at. And she was born. Can you cut that out? I fucked that up.
Yes.
Okay. All right. When you look at the actual spacing from where Elizabethtown is to Indiana, it's actually relatively close. You're talking about an hour's drive away. So when you cross the border of southern Indiana to get to Elizabethtown, it's 1 hour away.
Okay.
Okay. Not bad. But you'll see the relevance to that when it comes to the case.
Okay.
And then our second victim is Margaret Mary Peggy Gill. Her name was Margaret Mary Gill, but her friends and people who loved her called her Peggy. I did not see an explanation, but you know how sometimes you get nicknames and
I guess, but that's like, my name is Mary, but everybody call me Keisha.
Yeah, well, I mean, if that's what they do. Maybe you did something that made you look like a Kiki.
I don't even look like a Keisha.
You do look like a Keisha. Girl, bye. You look like a Keisha.
Your name fits you.
Yes, it does. Right.
If you didn't know, K stands for Keisha.
Kiki. So she was born to Terry and Ann Gill. She actually grew up in Maryville. So she's one of us. She attended Maryville High School, my high school, right?
Class
Maryville.
2011.
2002.
I'm West Side. Oh wait.
Don't hate. And when she was in school, she was part of a social club for future homemakers of America. She participated in like baking challenges and was known to be very nice, kind of like well-mannered, but also shy. According to her manager and her family, she was just really a very generous person who would do things for anyone. And also, like literally on that last day of her work, she has spent her evening putting like the final touches on her father's birthday plans because she was planning him a birthday party. And she had kind of like lost track of herself in her work of what she was doing because she was like baking a cake and, you know, getting all the arrangements together. And her dad's like, "Are you going to work?" And she's like, "Oh, yeah. You know, I'm going to work, old man." Right. I'll get there when I get there.
Sounds like me.
And so, you know, it was just like her. It was in her nature to do those types of things. Peggy worked in Maryville off of I-65 and US 30. And at that time, so we're talking, this was in the 90s, there were 6 hotels on that little corridor gateway, okay? Mm-hmm. So if anyone is familiar with Maryville, if you guys are from this area, bear with us because I'm going to explain it for the people that don't know.
Maryville was a cornfield.
It was a little more than a cornfield. We had malls. We had 2 malls at that time, so don't let her tell you it was just a cornfield. We had Century Mall and we had South Lake Mall. But when you're talking about the area where the hotel is that she worked at that time it was 6 hotels that were over there, and a couple of restaurants.
This is over there by like where Sheffield's and stuff is?
This is over by, so when you're talking about it, it's like it's a little bit past where the Sheffields.
No, I'm just saying, like you're talking about
on Mississippi Street.
6.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there was that newspaper, Northwest Indiana Times, they have an office back where that hotel was, back further.
I used to go with my cousin because she used to used to deliver papers in the morning, so I used to go with her to that office. I know
Yes, and at that time, and still really to this day, Maryville is considered a pretty safe community. You know, there is crime, but it's not like you're talking about a big major city type of crime situation. I don't have the numbers on how many murders happened that year, but the number was minimal. And when the planning for that hotel was taking place, and like how they do yearly plans and assess risk and stuff, it was considered a low risk hotel. So they didn't have a security guard. They didn't actually have a lot of measures for safety because it was considered a very safe place to work, you know. Now, Peggy was working a night shift there. She was like a desk clerk. And, you know, They didn't have like bulletproof glass. They just had a desk. You come into the hotel like through the lobby doors. You have a desk. That's what it was. Okay. And then let's go on to our next victim, which is Gina Gilbert. Gina, I could not find as much information as I did on our other two ladies. However, like I couldn't find her birth date. And I searched, I went through public records. I looked for her previous like marriage certificate. I couldn't really find that. But she was described as hardworking, intelligent, a go-getter, and you know, her family was at the forefront of her mind. She was not the type of person to just like leave her family. She wanted to be in her area where she was at because she loved her parents, she loved her children. She had been up on like hard times. Her previous couple of years, she had gotten divorced. She was living in a smaller home and she had just gotten her kids back and was like taking care of them and stuff. Okay.
Life back on track.
Getting her life back on track. But she was a smart woman. Girl.
Literally.
She was a smart woman. She worked as a bookkeeper for Castrus Oil and also this trucking company. And then she worked, like when she was working at the trucking company as a bookkeeper, that's where she was at first. She picked up some extra hours at the hotel. Like that was her second job. And really, like when I was reading this, I was like, you know what, ain't it sad that we still going through the same things today? Like the cost of living is so ridiculous. The people who want to do a good job have to darn near struggle, work two jobs. You flipping working day and night, trying to just make it, just to make it. But she wasn't ready to settle. Like, overall was like, look, we're going to do what we're going to have to do. I'm not going to cry about it. She, on top of working these two jobs, she was taking care of her kids and she was enrolling in college because she wanted to better herself. She knew she was smart and she wanted better for her children. And with all of the things that transpired in the story, which we will get to in a minute, one thing that I can say that I thought was like the best, like, and I don't know, like I'm sure that other people talked about it, but her daughter is actually an attorney now.
Period.
Wow.
And I'm like, what a motivation.
Girl power, for
you know,
real.
No, for real. Because, you know, of course, I'm sure her mom, the things that her mother instilled in her definitely had effects on her to work hard, to go for what you want. And I'm sure even down to the fact that her mother was murdered and wanting to know what happened, maybe that might have driven the want to be an attorney some too. But her daughter was a 17-year-old high school student. She was in her senior year of high school when this transpired. She was actually going to be in class with her mom, in college courses with her mom.
That's dope.
And, you know, she was leading her children by example. Her brother was younger than her. Her name was Kimberly, and her brother was Scott, I believe.
Yeah.
And he was 12 years old at the time. They were living in Rensselaer, and she was working right outside of that in, I believe, Remington. Yeah, the hotel was in Remington. It was a Days Inn in Remington, right off of I-65. So in that area, when you're going down I-65, so all these are off of I-65. This last area that we're going to discuss is off of I-65, and when you are in Remington, we've all passed it. It's a very small stop. You see on your way there's like some farms, like cow farms, where they raise cows and get the milk and everything. And then there's a stop, like a rest area, and then right after that is Remington. And you have a couple of hotels. So what is very similar in these areas where these ladies worked? It was kind of remote.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot going on that was around them.
It was very much on like truck stop.
Yeah. And it's already creepy going down I-65 now because it's, when it gets dark, sometimes you have those areas where it's light, it's street lights, and then you have some areas it's completely nothing.
Besides your headlights and the headlights of the other cars.
The headlights and the windmill farms.
Yes, which is creepy. At nighttime, just
blinking red lights and turning in the middle of the night, and you just by yourself, and anything could just
I
pop out.
definitely use that as a marker though. Like whenever I'm going anywhere, that's how I mark how.
Let me know I'm close to Indianapolis.
Yes. So she is our victim that was in Remington. Now for our final victim. And this one, she was working in the Columbus, Indiana area at Days Inn. And spoiler alert, she is our only surviving victim. I do not know her name. No one knows her name besides probably the cops and her. And if you are listening to this, ma'am, you have no idea what you've been through, but thank you for doing what you did to help at least identify who this person was. She was the person who was, she was raped, and she was also, like I said, the only surviving victim, but she was stabbed. She was able to get away from him and ran off and was able to get to the cops and tell them what happened, okay? All right, so now we are going to talk about our perpetrator, Mr. Harry Edward Greenwell.
Boo.
Very big boo, sir. Very. And you're not even here living among us.
So we don't talk shit anyway.
Right, to hear our disdain, but I hope from wherever you're at, you get to hear it.
Hell, he's in hell. 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 That's where you are.
Okay, so
hell is hot. Hell, very hot and dark.
Fiery place. So Harry was born in Kentucky, in Louisville, Kentucky, actually, on December 9th, 1984. And Sagittarius. Yeah. And so as far as his childhood, there are things that are out there about him. And I don't want to give him excuses because this is just the most absurd, ridiculous, and for no reason kind of crime. But as far as his life as an adult, he was arrested on different charges, some in Louisville for robbing people. He was actually sentenced and convicted. He actually broke out of jail. I think that should have been an indicator that he didn't need to come out of jail. He was a psych ward. He was arrested in Jefferson County in Kentucky in '65 for sodomizing someone. And I'm not sure why that wasn't enough either. And I mean, I feel like when we go through these cases, we have this over and over again. But he had a record of doing things, and not just a little bit of things. He was one of the ones who didn't get he acted good in jail, we're going to let him out, because he didn't act good.
He was a good kid growing up.
He was a jailbreaker. But with the sodomy case, he was sentenced to the Kentucky State Prison, and he was in there. He did his time. While he was in there, this one he actually served his time. He didn't actually break out. And then when he got out of jail, miraculously, this was years later, so like in '78, his wife died in a house fire.
Surprise, surprise.
I'm just like, I don't know how that is not looked into after all these things that he's done, but his wife died in a house fire, guys.
Interesting.
And then he remarried like a year and a half later. And of course he did not stop his ways. He was arrested again for burglary that same year. He was sentenced and put in jail in Iowa because he had moved now up to Iowa.
He deserves.
And the interesting thing, because I'm giving you guys the timeline of his activities, but when he got to Iowa, there was a shift in him. People remembered him as a kind and charming guy. They said that he did, he had a green thumb. He planted things. He would take stuff to the farmer's market. He was really sociable with the people in town, and they knew him for that. He did he had helping hands, things that he would do at church. And so he had this duality about him where there's things that he would do in the dark that people really didn't know about. And then there were these things that he did when he was present in the community.
Yeah. And then there was some other information just speaking on, you said, when he got married. So it was she was a single mother who had actually been in an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
And so they got married, and so he ended up adopting a daughter from his previous marriage and then fathering a son of his own. And so I just thought that was interesting.
But you know, the crazy part is if you read about the kids, they say that their dad was like the best dad.
But that's usually how.
That's not weird though. Like that's common.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Like that always comes off as a common thing. Like you the upstanding family man, and
you growing vegetables.
Your wife and kids,
to the duality.
Farmers market.
The split personality. It's like you're a different person when you're at home, and I think like doing that, putting on that act, and becoming this entirely different person, and that really is against your character, is what makes them lash out so much when they are getting out there and we see these violent crimes that they're committing. It's because all of this stuff that they've been bottling up to play the good dad or the good husband or the good neighbor is
so far from their character.
These women or men or whoever, children, whoever the victims are, is released on the least, suspected people, and of course no one deserves that.
And that's why it's always like people have that, like, how, like, look at how these school shooters, they go through, they kill all these people and stuff, and then they turn around and say, oh, he was a good kid, or or he had a rough life, but that does not excuse what you did. And that still, no matter how good of a person you portray to be, it does not take away from the shitty behavior.
Absolutely. You are so right.
And that throws me off all the time.
But that then opens the door of how we as a society, and we've gotten better over the years, but how we as a society do not pay attention to the mental well-being of people.
Oh my God.
People avoid going to see a therapist, a psychotherapist, anything.
Or even when you see somebody experiencing, like we know when we see something that's off, even with our family members. It can be the smallest thing.
You can be sleeping too much and I'm thinking something's wrong with you.
Why is you doing that? That's weird. And we don't point those things out, or we don't get them the help they need early on.
It's too late.
Because it's almost like you don't want to say anything. You don't want to cry, but maybe you should.
And then, it just really opens that door into that whole mental illness is a real thing.
A real thing.
A real thing. And I feel like in some of these cases that we talk about, if things were done early on, we hear about them in their awful childhoods, or, they were experiencing this and they were seen as schizophrenic, but they never got any help. I feel like a lot of this stuff could be prevented.
Or at least maybe it wouldn't go so far. Like, maybe, not saying they would never be a criminal, but maybe they wouldn't go to the extreme. Like, maybe that part of compassion that they lack would have been turned on.
But,
or, you know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't have been where they had no compassion for people.
Right, but you know how that also starts too. A lot of that stems from childhood. So, like they say, like I was watching a video and it was like a little kid playing with a kitten. Cute and innocent. This motherfucker took it and put it in a blender.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, but the mama was just standing there, like she was the one video recording, and he was just sitting there, and he was just like, oh, cute kitten, and put it in the blender. And it went viral. This was like a couple months ago, and I was like, are you serious right now? You think that shit is cute?
They must not.
But she stopped
them.
Cats. Right, she stopped them, but why would you let it get that far? And as a parent, if you see that, like if you see your child doing something out of the ordinary,
like, hey now,
you gonna go on the phone, mama, what the fuck is wrong?
More than that, if I'm seeing some stuff with my child that is got me raising eyebrows or questioning stuff, I'm gonna realize that it may be beyond me.
Well,
I am not
a therapist.
Yeah, I'm not trained to deal with all these things. So instead of avoiding it and acting like it's not happening and looking at it like, oh, it'll pass with time, give them the help they need early on. Like, again, we don't know how that will affect them down the line. Some people are born psychopaths and they're going to be psychopaths. Yeah. Like they can
but
get off,
you spotted it early.
They can have a perfect childhood
and
they
still
can,
go wrong.
you know, and still go wrong. So that's not saying that, but it's just I feel like some of these cases that we talk about could have been prevented.
Mm-hmm. Like even when like looking at kids now, like I'm the type of person I believe in kids getting disciplined, but also when kids act out, like not just lashing out and just, you know, falling out and acting crazy. Okay, it's one thing to be having a, you know, have a temper tantrum, but it's another thing to have something. A child is wounded somewhere, some part of their life where they feel like, oh, I'm about to act out, I'm about to lash out, I'm about to start breaking things, throwing things, hurting other people, you know, and you just kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna look into that. And it's like you see so many things, especially repetitive patterns, and I feel like when people do things like this, signs are already there in some form of fashion, even if it's little subtle hints.
Well, I feel like in this case it was more than subtle, and I mean not even throwing it on the parents. Let's talk about the justice system. This man was arrested several times, escaping prison, and someone somewhere should have been like, you know what, because we veering. But but you know how dude jumped on that judge?
Yeah.
And she was like, you need something else because what you're doing, like, I'm not mad at her. I rock with her. I'm like, girl, yes, he do need something else.
She's like, I hear what you're saying, but that ain't sitting right with me. Because if y'all obviously ain't
why
the same
would
thing
you attack a judge? That is
because
he federal offense.
But he was
clearly
already being sentenced for felony, so he clearly
was already fuck it like
but just imagine if she would have been like, okay, I approve your parole, and he gets out. He's gonna do the same shit.
Because he literally just did it right there, and that proves our point. In that situation, at least she didn't let something go too far. At least she didn't go easy and soft for him to turn around and go do something next week. And he proved that he would do it again because he literally is so dumb. In a split second. He's so dumb. He couldn't even figure out, I want to get her, but I'm going to get her on camera.
It happened so fucking fast.
And I'm going to do it with all the witnesses.
And it's literally, he was just sitting there and he was like waiting on it because you see him kind of like shaking, kind of like I'm about to. But how are you mad at this woman for doing her job?
Baby, bye.
And your ass could have got, I'm not going to say a light sentence or whatever she was trying to sentence you, but then you jumped across and attacked her.
She wasn't trying to give him a license. She gave him 30 years. She gave him 30 years. Well, that's why he was pissed.
Add 30 more to that now because your fucking ass attacked her.
But my point to that is, in like this case with Greenwell, where he had all these previous, I mean, we can count them up.
Yeah,
this man, it is a rap sheet. He had 1, 2, 3 robberies and burglaries. He had 1 sodomy. He had 2 jailbreaks. And they let him out of jail.
At this point, I think this man's is like really institutionalized. I can't even talk. Institutionalized.
Yeah.
But like, and that's how some people are. Like, some people, they came from nothing and they feel like, okay, I gotta keep committing crimes.
But he wasn't
in jail.
But my thing is that he wasn't a person who had nothing. He had wives. He had 1 marriage that was divorced, but then he had a new marriage. He had children. He had.
And sometimes that ain't good enough.
Oh, that's right. He was a widow. So he had 2 wives. He had children. He had 1 that was his, 1 that was adopted. Well, his stepchild. He had things to live for. There's no excuse for this ridiculousness.
And it obviously wasn't like, I'm gonna keep doing this stuff so I can go to jail, because when he got to jail, he was escaping.
Yeah, he was just doing whatever the hell he wanted to do.
Justice
clowning.
So on this last one where he, committed robbery up in Iowa and he was sent to jail, when he got out of jail, his new wife, Jenny, divorced him. Wow. And
surprise. And Jenny from the block. Jenny said she wasn't taking no shit.
And so that was in July of 1986. Okay. Now we are going to go ahead and get into the actual crimes. So here they go.
Into it.
So on February 21st of 19... oh my God. On February 21st of 1987, Vicki Heath was working at the Super 8 in Elizabethtown, Kentucky, and she was assaulted. She was working the night shift, and she was assaulted, and the assault included rape. And then it was like a very horrible scene in the lobby, or in that area where you come in, the front desk is. In fact, it was so bad that when other guests had come down, they were looking for her. They saw that there was nobody in the lobby area, and they thought that there was some form of struggle and called, or somebody had come in there and tore the place up. So they called the police because they didn't immediately see her. They called the police, and as they come around, they see her body on the floor, but it was like chairs were turned over, papers were scattered, like she fought. She fought for herself. And in fact, there was a lot of actual physical evidence that was there. Underneath her nails was scrapings. There was fibers, like physical fibers left, and hair.
I'm playing.
Mm-hmm. Now, when they reported this, they reported it as a woman being attacked, raped, but they did not give all of the evidence right away. The police, when they reported it to the public. Okay, so this was the first killing that was off of I-65. Then we come to where basically a few weeks later, 2.5 weeks later. 2.5 weeks and 2 years later to the date. We are on March 3rd, 1989. And this is early morning hours, so we're talking it's still very dark. And Harry comes to Maryville, to the Days Inn, where Margaret worked at Peggy. Yeah, Margaret Peggy worked, and she was assaulted. She was sexually assaulted and killed. Now this one, when they found the body, she was found outside of the hotel because he had pulled her, and I think it was to kind of confine it and, get some privacy so that he could do what he was doing.
So that he could rape her.
Yes.
Weird. So that he could rape her in peace. Crazy.
And on this one, he still didn't do a great job because he left evidence. He sucked at killing. And I don't think that he really had, there was some intention to conceal what he did, but he wasn't like a lot of killers where they literally take a lot of effort to hide the body.
Yeah, I was gonna say, he seems like he wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like he was not trying to get caught.
No, I don't think that he was trying to get caught, because as we said, when he got caught, he kept escaping before. So I don't think that he was trying to get caught. I think that he just kind of had this attitude, like, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Like, kind of that whole, it is what it is. Like, I did it, and I'm gonna leave.
Mm-hmm.
They ain't gonna catch me. Kind of like, that cocky, like, I'm too good to get caught type thing.
Probably sounded like Man Dark when after he got through murdering, he ha goodbye.
Weirdo. She was, the way that she was killed was she was shot with a .22. Now remember, this is just to jog your guys' memory about spacing and time, okay? So we are still on the same day, March 3rd, 1989. Margaret Peggy has been attacked and killed at the Days Inn in Maryville, and now down the way in Remington, which if you are driving the speed limit to get to Remington, it should take you about 45 minutes, okay? On that very same night, Gina Gilbert was sexually assaulted and killed. And this was outside of that Days Inn where she worked. Now, they aren't exactly clear on what place she died at, but they do know that her body was dumped off of the side of the road. So if you're familiar with 65, so bear with us. There are service roads that are on the side of I-65. You can see them from the highway. People can drive parallel with the highway. And then there's like a ditch, a grassy ditch that keeps and separates the service road from the highway. And then there's a little fencing. She was found in that ditch by a farmer. Okay. Now imagine you're getting up from your day, to start your day, very rural area, you're on your tractor, and this is the first thing that you see as you're starting your day, is this woman, her body just
battered and
beaten and left like garbage.
That's fucked up.
Yeah. And surprise, surprise, what do you think that Harry did? Do you think that he cleaned up anything?
Of course not.
No, he left fibers, DNA, and also she was also shot with the same .22.
So at this point, had they connected that it was the same person?
They had not connected Vicky Heath with them, but when they had this third killing and the same killing type and methods, that's when the wheels started turning, because it was literally within the same day in a 3-hour time span.
Isn't it like once you have 3 murders, it's considered serial killer, or is it 2?
I thought it was 3.
3?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that's the time frame of them, and then to make matters even more, to me, this is just more irritating. And I feel like, you know how sometimes we say like all things happen for a reason, like, right?
Yeah.
On March 9th, in a totally separate incident, Harry was arrested, he was arrested in La Crosse, but on a traffic violation. On a traffic violation.
Of all things.
And it just makes me wonder, like, what did he think when they stopped him?
What traffic violation would lead to arrest?
Maybe your behavior.
Driving erratically. Driving too slow. Driving too fast.
No, like, I know that some of those will lead to, like...
If you're drunk.
If somebody gave a description of a weird car, like report
driving erratically
at that time,
and especially if your response, like the only things that I can think of that would lead to arrest would be like a DUI, or if when they stop you from the traffic violation, you behave badly.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay.
But of course, that didn't hold people, because he's right back out again, and a couple weeks later, guess what Harry gets to do again? He is arrested in La Crosse again for a domestic incident. And basically what happened is he violated his restraining order that someone had against him.
Surprise.
Wait a minute. So wait,
I know. Keep going down. Let's keep adding up. I hope y'all are counting and tallying.
Wait a minute. Here's my question.
Mm-hmm. Can I have a little
This
more
man had already his meal. Let me go ahead and just fill you.
Mm-hmm.
Can I get a refill? Can I get a refill?
Thank you.
So, my question. This man had already been in jail, right? Multiple times. He was on
now. This is because we had already counted. There was 4 previously when his wife divorced him. Then the traffic violation arrest is the 6th. Yeah.
But then
7 times so far.
He was on parole, right?
No, I think he had hit the time of his parole. No, he had not.
So he was on parole, and they had all his DNA. Didn't they have his DNA in the system?
And that's what I thought about the sodomy, but this was 1989, and I don't know when CODIS...
Things are different.
When did CODIS come about? The sodomy happened... So 1989 is when the murders... That's the time of the murders. But when he was arrested for sodomy, remember it was a different state.
I know, but what I'm saying is like when
that was 65. They didn't have CODIS. They didn't have DNA. They weren't doing DNA in 65 when he was arrested for sodomy.
But so they're not going to take it. Regardless, when you're arrested, aren't you fingerprinted?
You're fingerprinted, but not DNA. Not unless you're doing a crime where they have to retain your DNA.
But I'm just saying, like maybe I've seen too much TV. Where when they have a case, they run it against everybody in their database. Mm-hmm. Like you said, it was a different time then, all that good stuff. But I just feel like there was a way, especially at this point since he had been arrested,
several times.
No, but this is now after these 3 murders have taken. He's been arrested.
But he was arrested for traffic violation.
I know, but I'm just still he was on parole when he got arrested. So that's probably why they arrested him for the traffic violation, because he was still on parole.
And it's cutting up.
Yeah, and it's when you call back in, they not just doing a test for the heck of it to be
They can't, but they have to have a reason to pull your DNA.
Reasonable cause.
Okay, so there's a reasonable cause. So say you're arrested tomorrow because, I don't know, will be a basic reason. You shoplifted at Walmart. They are not allowed to take your DNA.
Reasonable cause should be removed when you
But you know what I'm saying. You're not taking DNA.
Because you won't get fingerprinted for anything.
No, but here's
that.
What I'm saying is reasonable cause should be removed when you're on parole. Not because
no, they can't do that.
No, I'm just saying
that's against your right.
That's how I feel.
Oh, okay. I respect that.
That's how I
feel about death penalty. I agree with that.
Is that reasonable cause should be removed when you're on parole.
And you just keep
you can't just arrest me for no reason.
Hell, you can't even vote if you on parole.
But if you have arrested me and there's been a string of murders around this time, reasonable cause should be removed, and that person should have to be DNA tested to see, especially if you have a history of violence, because he had domestic violence stuff.
And he had sodomy. He was sentenced for sodomy.
Yeah, and so it's
we're not doing none of those?
Yeah, no. Reasonable cause when you're on parole should be removed. Specifically for DNA purposes.
Yeah.
Specifically for DNA purposes. Keep all your other rights, I don't care. But for DNA purposes, especially if you have a history.
And you just keep cutting up. And you just keep getting arrested. Because you clearly don't care about parole. You clearly don't care about restraining orders. You clearly don't care about breaking out of jail when you're supposed to be in jail. You don't care about being a repeat offender. Nothing. You have nothing bothers you. You just gonna do what you do. After Greenwell was picked up for this domestic incident that he had, and it was while he was violating a restraining order, as we have talked about his continuous disrespect and lack of concern for authorities and rules and all those things. He was sentenced to 15 months of probation for criminal trespassing in April 18th of 1998.
My birthday.
1989.
I'm sorry, 1989.
Well, year before I was born.
I flipped those numbers. So that you would think at some point there should be enough for his criminal activities, and it's not. Now we are going to talk about his last and final victim that we know of and that the authorities have linked to him. Again, as I had said before in our little spoiler alert part, our last victim, her name is unknown, her identity is unknown, and it is to protect her.
Good for her.
Because who needs to be constantly
relive that shit?
I mean, I'm sure she relives it because it did happen to her. But you don't need to be reminded of the press every time that a news alert comes on and your name's plastered all over a newspaper
and the fact that
and your picture is everywhere.
The fact that he was never actually convicted for this. Imagine if her name would have got out there, how easily it would have been for him to find her. Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. So she worked at the Days Inn in Columbus, Indiana off of I-65. Now, that area of Indiana, I am not as familiar with. I mean, I'm sure I've passed it. I just don't remember it exactly.
Wait, exactly where?
Columbus
is it's like a wedge between city. So it's like one of those, it's kind of like South Haven.
But it's not right off of 65 then,
no,
right?
It's not.
It's like you see the exit for Columbus, but you have to go down a little bit away, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, is Columbus a college town? Or am I thinking of something different? Bloomington?
You thinking about Bloomington.
Okay. But anyway, so she worked at this Days Inn. She was also a clerk, so she worked at the front desk, assisting people. She was assaulted.
Sexually assaulted.
Yes, she was sexually assaulted, stabbed, and still she fought for herself and managed to get away from him. He actually thought that she was dead.
You thought, nigga?
He thought wrong. And very good for her. And I don't know if she played
let's record that again. You said on YouTube we can't say nigga.
Oh
damn.
Shit. My bad.
All right, so
just go back to where that's for me to be able to easily find this part.
Okay. What was that?
Okay.
Go back to where she was.
I gotta put you next.
Okay. She was sexually assaulted. She was stabbed, and she got away from him. And he thought that she was dead. And I'm not sure if she played dead or if he just.
I wonder how that happened. Like, did she just go? Okay,
she said you thought.
And maybe he thought, and like because maybe she laid still or whatever, but somehow he was no longer concerned with her, and she got away. She was able to get medical care. So did she get
away while he was there, like escape from him, or did he think she was dead and he left?
They said that she escaped, so I'm assuming that she got away from him. Mm-hmm. Now this is the other part about her portion when it comes to it. There is a lot of detail from what they know and what they saw at the scenes of the other crimes. Hers is very masked, and I have gone down rabbit holes. I looked for court documentation because Indiana does give us public record. She is unnamed. They're actually, when you look for this, the only things that you will find when you look at the Indiana public court record for any of the victims that were in Indiana, what I have found is for Peggy, I found when her family took care of her estate. I found for Gina, she had a divorce decree and child custody, like where they had decided that. And they had down when her family did her estate. So for our unnamed victim, a lot of the information about her is been masked or not presented to the public. A lot, I'm assuming, to protect her identity. Yeah. And also too, because they were really working hard to find who this person was. You have to remember, when we're talking time frame, the ladies in Maryville and Remington were in 1989. Then our unnamed victim didn't happen until a year later.
When did Vicky?
But Vicky was in 87.
Yeah.
So we're talking about almost a 4-year time frame. 3 years and some change time frame of when all these incidents are happening. And they are no closer to finding a victim than day one when they found Vicky. So, understandably so, they have one who survived, and she can possibly identify her killer. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that she really did. The reason that there is a composite sketch is because what she showed.
Yeah, and that's what she said. It was a 6-foot tall man, bearded, and
the greasy, scraggly hair,
and wandering green eyes or something like that.
And he
had a lazy green eye.
He did, and he was slim.
He had a lazy eye, so she was like, he had wandering
eyes,
and they were green.
He had a wandering eye. And her description, when you look at her composite sketch, what they made from her description versus his picture, she was pretty dead on.
Yeah.
Pretty dead on. If he had had a hat in that picture from the cops, it would have been him.
Yep.
So she did a great job with describing him and giving detail, even down to describing his clothing, which helped when they started linking up fabric, because there were fabrics and stuff that were left. She did a very good job in describing him. And in fact, you see? Yeah, you can see.
We'll post the picture so you guys can
look at that side by side there.
Baby, that eye.
It is. And it's wandering. And when you look at his pictures close up, that eyeball was doing something different. Real different. So anyways, that happened, and that was January when she was assaulted. January 2nd of 1990.
Oh, that's crazy.
Well, again, it didn't stop his behaviors. And so, another spoiler alert, Harry was never actually convicted of these crimes. So I'm telling you a story that doesn't necessarily have the finish that I would like, because I want him to hang. I want revenge.
Guillotine. I was gonna say, or what she said, guillotine.
Guillotine. Come on.
With a dull knife.
With a dull. Let's pull it up a couple times. Let's try it again. Sorry, it didn't work.
Oh man.
Dang.
Oh
man. We'll try it again tomorrow. We'll just let you slowly bleed. Tomorrow we'll like slowly bleed.
I have some internal bleeding right now, but that's okay.
I'm going to continue to go through his criminal history, and then we'll talk about and how everything kind of came together.
It's never ending.
It is never ending. So, October 11th of 1998, he was arrested in Iowa yet again, this time for felony drug possession. Now, to get a felony drug possession, you have to have a copious amount of drugs.
Mm-hmm.
So we can tell,
what was the amount in 1998?
Well, it might have been smaller. It might have been smaller, honestly, because drugs were frowned upon.
Drugs are bad, okay?
Okay.
Say no to drugs.
But then after that incident, he was arrested and violating a restraining order yet again, because he get no fucks about restraining orders. Greenwell got arrested for violating a restraining order. And we are laughing because this is just absolutely absurd. At some point in this, y'all, when I'm giving y'all his laundry list that's fucking going on here, we should all be thinking this is ridiculous. This is actually absurd. That a person can have this much shit
and keep getting out.
They're like, oh, he just violated another restraining order, y'all. It's all good.
It's alright.
It's okay.
No big deal.
You just had a whole bunch of drugs. We had to arrest him again.
Let him go.
Let him out. He break out, so we might as well let him out.
Right. So he violated the restraining order November 13th, 1998.
And then guess what? They were like, well, he violated that, but he maybe really didn't mean it. So we're going to have to dismiss that.
3 days later.
Yeah, we over it.
3 days later.
It's okay.
We really don't want to deal with him.
We tired.
It's fucking trash.
Yeah, we tired. You know how it is.
But this story does have a happy ending.
He did die.
He never was convicted of his crime.
Congratulations on dying.
But he did die.
And I would like to say he died a death that I wouldn't really wish upon anyone, but he could get it. He could have it.
Yeah.
I hope cancer treated him well.
January 31st, 2013.
Okay.
He lived to 2013.
Committing crimes,
never paying for the crimes that he committed against these 4 victims.
And not in a way in which, so today I had a really interesting discussion that sometimes, that want for vengeance is, for me, is something that I want, and I don't really know why I'm like that, but I want people to suffer. I don't think that it is okay for you to go out in the world, do dirt, and then just get away with it. I feel like you should be held accountable. But a very interesting point and perspective that was brought to me today was, well, how do you know that they're not paying for it? Just because you don't visibly see someone paying for their crime, they do have to deal with what they've done.
But you know what? I also think karma comes in when people have a long, drawn out life. You okay, damn, I committed all these crimes. I'm still here. Here you go. You know how some of them make it to 90, damn near 100, and you be like, yeah, you lived a long, sorry ass, miserable fucking life as you should have. I hope every day you woke up was a bad day for you. That's how I feel like it should be.
Is that I feel like sometimes karma be sleep or on vacation, and
she be about you sometimes,
or sometimes she don't deal out as strict of karma as she do for other folks, and so it's whatever did happen to them, for those people that go years without getting caught, and they go years without getting caught and still killing. It's like whatever is being dished to you, it's not enough.
But that's how, and to me, that's how I really feel about it. Like, and I think that's why I really am vocal and very agreeing with. We need to bring back death penalty. I truly believe that when there was death penalty in every state and people were afraid of dying themselves, they were a little hesitant. I won't say that it stopped murder. I won't say that it stopped crime. But it was in the back of the thought of, like, if I do this and I get busted, like, I could actually die.
But also to Mary's point, like, when you said, like, you feel like they don't give their karma sleep. What people don't realize, not saying you, but like in general, people don't realize that karma, it don't have to hit you. It can hit anything you attach to. Yeah. Karma can hit your kids. Karma can hit
people that have lack of empathy.
It's really not fair. But karma ain't set up the way we think it's set up sometimes. Because I've seen people do horrendous things to other people, not even like not killing them, just hurting people and destroying them. And I've seen that karma come back around on their children, on their parents, or anybody closely attached to them. That's fucked up.
It is fucked up. Like, and I feel like that's not right. I feel like it should hit the person.
Karma shows up in whatever address you move to.
I feel like it should hit the person who did it. That's just really me. Like, we were in this conversation I was having, we were talking about Jonathan Majors, and what happened with him. And like in this court case with the video evidence, you can see that what she was saying was not actually what was happening. And I'm like, now you've literally destroyed this man's career. And I'm sure, and like, so,
a lot of shit.
And like, and what was said to me was, so we were talking and he's like, well, this might have been his opportunity for him for something bigger and better to come into his life. And that is very possible.
Kind of like a Johnny Depp situation.
But however, in the same respect, you went after him to ruin him.
Yeah.
Because what you were saying is not true.
He moved on with his fucking life.
And he moved on with his life and you were upset and you came to destroy him. Now what is going to be done to you? Because you've made false allegations. And he still was found guilty.
Yeah.
Found guilty of what? Telling her to sit in the car and walking away.
Of defending himself and walking away. Saying, hey, get your hands off me and walking away. But you know what? That's another conversation for another day.
Yeah, but so my point is, all of this is to say, in Greenwell's case, he did get to die from cancer, and we are going to now connect the dots for you so that you can see how all of this ended up being linked to him. Okay? So, Greenwell never actually was brought in, questioned, or anything like that in regards to any of these cases. However, there were some things when the cases were presented and family members' DNA was entered into a database.
So how we entered the families, but we couldn't enter his.
Baby. It was because the family members gave it.
Why?
I think that they gave it when they were hearing these cases. There were forms of links that were like connecting for them. And his DNA was matched 99.99999%.
So it was a hell yeah.
It was him.
Hell yeah.
And then
hell yeah.
When they looked at other records, like the 22, he did have a 22 that had been registered to him. So there were other things that, and so how they linked it was, the DNA was left at the site of Vicky, and then there was DNA that was left at the site of Gina. No, Gina.
Okay.
At Peggy's, there wasn't DNA, but Peggy was linked to Gina because of the 22. So that's how it all started to connect. And then because they had the sketch from the unidentified, who literally gave you damn near a picture. If she could have took a picture, that would have been the only thing better than her description of him. And it linked all these cases, and then his DNA matched, and boom, they had their killer.
A little slow.
It's a little slow. It is.
Yeah, never caught him.
Some things that I found really interesting. Some things I found really interesting when I was researching the case. At the end, when they announced all of their findings for the families, Gina's daughter, remember the one I told you who ended up being an attorney? She ended up actually speaking at the press conference, which Kimberly, if you are listening, you are and I say this with all due respect.
Shout out to you, girl.
You a badass bitch, honey. And I say that with all due respect. Like, I don't know how you got up there and did it, but you did. And you did it with grace. You spoke eloquently, but your emotions were very raw and you could feel them. And we are going to put the link so that you can see it. It's on Indiana State Police. They have like a YouTube connecting that you can see their videos. She was the last speaker of the day. They had speakers from the FBI because the FBI was involved in the investigation. The state police were involved in the investigation. And each prospective city that these murders happened in were also involved. So they had a representative from each and talking about how and the amount of work and stuff that linked in the cooperation that made everything come together. But when she talked about her mom, you know, at the end of the day, her mom was working that shift because her mother has switched the shift because she wanted to come to her cheerleading meet that she had. I remember reading that. And I think about like how good of a mom her mom was. You know, she didn't have her mom in her life for her whole time, but for 17 years, she made a powerful impact in her daughter. And for her daughter to get up there and to speak for all of the families in regards to the findings that were found. And I don't believe that there is any form of ending to that because these people lived. They were important and they had families and they are missed daily.
There's a form of closure though.
Yeah.
To officially
to have an end to that chapter of it.
Yeah.
Of the guessing and who was it and why.
And to know that he's no longer around.
Right. And there's really no answer to why.
No, of course not.
Because these were all random. He didn't even know any of these women. This was just something that he did, right? But at least, like you said, a closure of who was it that did this to my family member? Because for years, for almost 30 years, there was no answer.
Yeah.
That wraps up our story of the I-65 killer.
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap. So you can catch us on what? Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Are we on Twitter yet? Twitter.
We're working on it. It's just a page there, but it's blank.
It's blank, but we're there. And then
YouTube
please
music.
subscribe to
like
us.
And subscribe.
iHeartRadio, all that stuff.
Amazon Music.
And please give your comments and let us know what you think. And we do care what you think.
Yes.
Now we are going to continue doing what we do because we're not scripted and we're not going to be scripted because we want a raw conversation. We want to talk about the things that we find important in these cases.
These are real people, real situations, and so we're having a real conversation about it. And real conversations veer. They veer.
They do.
They go from here to there. Support.
Yes. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Share the video, please.
Tell your friends.
Or if you're listening to us now and you're not watching our YouTube, share the link. Mm-hmm. And again, like it, comment, even if it's just commenting saying, hey. And then also starting next week, we're going to bring back our business love appreciation.
Bye. Bye.